Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find us on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Today I'm going to show you my bandsaw. I had to move it out of the way to be able to shoot another video here in a little bit, and I've been meaning to make a video on my bandsaw, so I figured why not go ahead and do it right now. You've seen all kind of different stands and stuff for bandsaws other places, where you take a portable bandsaw and then mount it to a table to turn it into a vertical bandsaw for cutting out anything you want to cut out, small parts, pieces, knife blades is what I use it for most. This is actually my second one. I bought a portaband from the pawn shop, was my first one, and it worked really well. And then I decided it finally gave up the ghost, and so I decided to get this one. It's a dewalt. I don't see the model number on it, but it is a variable speed. That's what this wheel right here does. I usually leave it on 6, but you can turn it down if you want to. The nice things about this particular one, and I wish I could remember the model number so I could tell it to you, but the variable speed is nice, even though I don't use it very often. It has a trigger lock, so you don't have to worry about zip tying the trigger down. You just squeeze the trigger, push the button in, trigger's locked. It does have a little bit wider throat. I can cut about 2 to 3 inches on this one, 2.5, somewhere around there. Does it's nice and tall, so you can get it's a 5-inch, so you could cut something that's 5 inches in diameter. The only change that I made to the saw itself to be able to run it like this is this table. Now the original table, it's hung on a piece of wire on the back so that it never gets lost. And this table, all it is a piece of, let's grab the tape measure again, 3-inch channel. And I had to make a little bit of a relief cut there to be able to clear the housing. It bolts into the same bolt holes that the standard table bolts into. And then just cut where your blade's gonna where it's gonna come out when you go to swap the blades out. Now a lot of these, I guess that's a good time to talk about these right now, is a lot of the times you see somebody's built these tables and they did the table really nice, but to be able to change the blades, you have to take the saw out of the stand to be able to swap the blades. This one, it's real easy. Since you cut that slot in the front of your table, to be able to swap the blades, you just pop that lever. That lowers this wheel. Pull the blade out. While you've got the blade out, check your rollers, make sure that they're turning freely. If not, give them a drop of oil. And then put the new blade back in, tighten down the clamp, and you're good to go. You don't have to disassemble anything to swap the blades. The stand, it was just, I think the stand came with a hard wheel grinder that I picked up at the pawn shop a while back. And all it is a piece of plate welded to a piece of tubing, welded to another plate, and then bolted down to a wooden base. Now to make the stand portion, the nice thing about this dewalt saw is that it's got, right here, you can see the back of the grip sits flat. It just sits down on there, but the really nice thing is the side of it. It's got a real flat side. So when you go to mount it, all I did was take a piece of, that looks to be about 3-inch wide, 1/4-inch thick mild steel, measured it out, heated it up in the forge, and then bent it at a 90-degree angle, drilled a couple of holes, bolted it to this plate, and then it's just held on by 2 clamps. This one right here is a C-clamp. The C-clamp just grabs a hold of the, right there, just grabs a hold, just clamps the blade shield, I guess you would call it, clamps it to the upright. And then this clamp, let me get you around the other side, you can see that better where it's clamped up at. Just clamps right across there. And then this clamp, just a carpenter's clamp. This is actually the biggest one that I have, and I don't normally use it for anything else, so kind of to get it out of the way, one day I just clamped this up with it, and it's sat there ever since, except for the couple of times I've needed to use it for other projects. But it's got softer jaws. One of them pivots, so just clamp this up to there, and bam, away you go. Now, one other thing that I don't see mentioned very much with these bandsaws is the on-off switch. Now, like I told you, this one's got a trigger lock, so you don't have to wire tie or duct tape your trigger down or anything like that. You just squeeze the trigger, hit the lock, and it goes all the time, as long as it has power. Now, a lot of people will put an on-off switch, you know, somewhere on the base or the table or something like that, so that they can, you know, turn it on and off. Personally, with this much exposed blade on a vertical bandsaw like this, you know, normally, I mean, this style of saw is designed to be run, it's designed to be held with 2 hands. You know, one hand on the grip up here, and then one hand on the pistol grip back there. And so both of your hands are out of the way of the blade, because otherwise, you know, they're holding the saw itself. Once you mount the saw like this, now your hands are right up in here around that blade. With a normal vertical bandsaw, you've got a guard that slips down over the blade. Also, you know, usually these tracking wheels come down with it to give you a little bit more support. But, you know, with this style, with this beefy of a blade, you don't really get into a whole lot of twisting or anything. But, you know, you've got 5 inches worth of saw blade right there. You know, so if you slip, or if you're pushing on something too hard and it slips, or, you know, you don't let up at the end of the cut, you know, your fingers can go right up in there and get cut. So, I thought about building a guard, but there's an awful lot of times, first of all, a guard would make it a pain to change the blades. And then a lot of times you're cutting irregular shapes, and you need to get it, you need that blade length to be able to get in there and make your cut. So my solution to that, and I don't see this talked about very often, is a regular foot switch. I got this one from Harbor Freight. I think it was about 15 bucks. You plug your saw into the back side of the foot switch, plug the foot switch into your power source, in this case a power strip. This particular power strip, it also runs my lights, so if the lights are on, the saw has got power. So that's one thing that that you have to kind of keep in mind. You know, I work by myself. There's not normally anybody else in the shop. If there is somebody coming in the shop, a kid or something like that, you know, I'll just turn that power switch off, the lights are off, and the saw won't run. But if those lights are on, you step on that foot switch, and the saw is going to start. But the nice thing about that is that now this stand isn't quite level, and it doesn't really have a whole lot of weight in the bottom. So usually I just stick my foot on the corner of that, which adds enough weight to steady the saw out. And then when you're cutting on one of these things, let me go grab some safety glasses. When you're cutting on these things, by putting your foot on the corner of that stand, that puts all your weight right here. And you have to keep that weight right there. You can't lean into it too much or the saw starts moving around. So keep all your weight on the foot that's holding the saw down, and then your right foot, in this case because I'm right-footed, it's the one that controls the saw. So I can come in here, use both hands, and if I get into a bind, start cutting my thumb or something, which it's never happened, but it could, start cutting my thumb, as long as all my weight's on my non-trigger foot, then I should be able just to go, holy cow, that hurts. And it gets my thumb away and stops the saw at the same time. I guess I can do a little cut. It's just a piece of 16th inch steel. I think I've got a 18 tooth per inch blade on this. I don't really have a brand preference as far as the blades. They all, Home Depot carries the Milwaukee ones, so when I'm running low on bandsaw blades and I'm at Home Depot, I pick those up. I think Lowe's has got the Lennox blades. So if I'm at Lowe's and it's on my shopping list, then I pick them up there either way. But I like the 18 tooth per inch for cutting out steel, and then the 14 tooth per inch for cutting out handle materials. Either blocking them to size or splitting a block to be able to turn it into handle scales for a full tang instead of a hidden tang knife. But the things work great. Now notice also, with having this table like this, let's make sure you're still in the... Okay, with having this table like this, let me tell you, when you've got that much bare blade, you really start thinking about the different methods to be able to work without injuring yourself. I mean, that's a big old chunk of blade. Anyways, so the table here, you notice how I grab the table? I grab the table and pinch it really hard with these fingers here and with these fingers in the part of my palm right here. So when I'm grabbing and pushing, the only thing that's pushing are, my thumbs. So even if I do forget to let up at the end of the cut, see there, my hands stop because they're gripping the sides of the table. In some cases, I would like a nice large table, to be able to clamp guides and everything too. But for most of the stuff here, I'm using this for just to get everything down close to size, and then I'll finish, like when I'm cutting out a knife blade, I'll cut just outside my lines and then take the blade over to the belt grinder and then clean everything up. The other nice thing about this style of design for your bandsaw holder is that 2 clamps. You pop your C-clamp off, pop the other clamp off, unplug the saw. Probably want to do that first. To unplug it, take the 2 clamps off, the whole thing lifts off, and you can use it as a regular portaband. Usually, and I do that occasionally, even with this table on it. If that table gets in the way, take the 2 screws out of the back, grab your other table, install it, away you go. So it's a real good versatile way to mount a handheld bandsaw and turn it into a vertical bandsaw. And like I said, the way that I've gotten kind of used to working with it, it's pretty safe, I guess. I mean, I've never cut myself or come close. Sometimes it would be nice to have like a a guard up here that I could swing down and drop, because a lot of times you'll get, you know, I work standing up, so if I'm cutting something right here, a lot of times it'll throw dust up in my face. So it would be kind of nice to have something to put down there, but typically it's not that big of a problem. But anyway, that's my upright bandsaw, and the way I design the stand and why, and the way I like to use it. And it's a great tool. Boy, let me tell you, it's the only bad thing is that my arm must have shrunk a little bit, because now I'm not hand hacksawing everything when I need to cut something. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.